There is a version of you that no one has ever met. Not your friends, not your family, not even the person you share a bed with. There is a version of you that only exists when the room is empty, when the phone is face down, when the performance is finally over, and you are terrified of that version because the world taught you to be. Think about your day. How much of your energy was spent being perceived? The careful replies, the curated expressions, the quiet calculations of how to be liked, how to be needed, how to be anything other than alone. You carry a mask so heavy that you have forgotten what your own face feels like underneath it. And every notification, every group chat, every hollow gathering you drag yourself to is not connection. It is a transaction. You are purchasing the temporary illusion that you matter to someone because deep down you believe that if no one is watching, you disappear. But here is the great misunderstanding that has poisoned your entire life. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. They are opposites. Loneliness is the painful absence of others. Solitude is the sacred presence of yourself. One is a wound, the other is a homecoming. And the tragedy is that the world has made you terrified of the only person who was ever capable of saving you. There is a reason this fear runs so deep. Your brain is ancient. Thousands of generations ago, exile from the tribe meant death. Isolation was not a lifestyle choice, it was a sentence. And that program is still running inside you right now, firing alarms every time you sit in silence, convincing you that if you are not surrounded, you are in danger. But look around. The tribe is gone. What replaced it is a digital hallucination, a flickering stream of faces that know your name but not your pain, that will like your photo but never hold your hand in the dark. Now imagine something radical. Imagine a mind that stops asking for permission to exist, a mind that is no longer renting its peace from the opinions of strangers. When you stop reaching outward, something extraordinary begins to happen inward. Creativity returns. Intuition sharpens. The noise fades, and for the first time, you can hear your own voice, not the voice you perform with, but the real one, the one buried beneath years of people-pleasing and emotional survival. This is not emptiness. This is sovereignty. Let me be clear about what this journey is. This is not a manifesto against connection. This is not a guide on how to become cold or closed or antisocial. This is a blueprint for becoming unbreakable. Because when you learn to be happy alone, every relationship you choose becomes a genuine choice, not a desperate need. You stop being a beggar for attention and start becoming a kingdom unto yourself. Welcome to the sanctuary of the self. It is time to stop running from the silence and start listening to what it has been trying to tell you all along. Let us learn the art of being whole, all by yourself. There is a word you have heard 10,000 times, a word so common, so ordinary, that you have never once stopped to question what it actually means. That word is alone. Say it slowly. Alone. Feel the weight of it. Feel how it lands in your chest like a verdict. Society has taught you that this word is a diagnosis, that to be alone is to be unwanted, that it is proof of some invisible failure, some deficiency in your ability to be loved. But language holds secrets that culture tries to bury. The word alone did not always carry this sorrow. It descends from an old English phrase meaning all one, entirely whole. complete in oneself. Somewhere across the centuries, a word that once described fullness was hollowed out and filled with pity. And you have been living inside that lie your entire life. Tonight, we begin the work of semantic remapping. We take this word back, we crack it open, and separate the two radically different experiences that have been falsely merged under its shadow. The first is loneliness, the second is solitude, and the distance between them is the distance between starving and feasting. Loneliness is the aching awareness that someone is missing. It is the empty chair, the phone that does not ring, the room that echoes. It is not simply being without people. You can feel loneliness in the middle of a crowded party, surrounded by laughter that does not include you. Loneliness is a signal, a neurological alarm that something essential to your survival has been severed. It is hunger, but not for food. It is hunger for being seen, for being recognized as real by another pair of eyes. Solitude is something else entirely. Solitude is the quiet, deliberate act of turning inward and discovering that you are not empty. It is the conscious choice to sit with yourself and realize that the person sitting there is enough. Loneliness is a famine. Solitude is a feast. And the tragedy of modern life is that almost no one knows the difference. Your brain knows the difference, even if you do not. Neuroscience has revealed something extraordinary about the architecture of social pain. When you experience rejection, when you feel excluded or unwanted, a specific region of your brain activates. It is called the anterior cingulate cortex, and it is the same region that processes physical pain. The same neural tissue that fires when you burn your hand fires when someone you love walks away. This is not a metaphor. This is anatomy. Your brain does not distinguish between a broken bone and a broken bond. Loneliness is, in the most literal sense, an injury. It hurts because your nervous system was engineered to interpret social disconnection as a threat to your survival. And for most of human history, it was. But here is where the story turns. When loneliness is imposed upon you, when isolation is something that happens to you against your will, the anterior cingulate screams. The stress hormone cortisol floods your bloodstream. Your immune function begins to decline. Your cognition narrows. You enter a state of chronic biological emergency. However, when solitude is chosen, when you walk into the quiet of your own volition, something profoundly different occurs. The alarm stays silent, cortisol remains stable, and a vast, ancient network within your brain begins to stir. It is called the default mode network. The default mode network is the brain's most introspective architecture. It activates not when you are reacting to the world, but when you are reflecting upon yourself. It is the seat of autobiographical memory, of moral reasoning, of imagining the future, of understanding who you are beneath the roles you perform. In the constant noise of social life, this network is suppressed. It cannot function when you are busy monitoring the expressions of others, calibrating your words, managing your image. It needs silence. It needs absence. It needs you to stop performing and simply be. Solitude is not the deprivation of stimulation. It is the condition under which your deepest cognitive architecture finally comes online. Think of it this way. Being with others is like looking through a window. You see the world. You observe landscapes, faces, movement, color. The window shows you everything that is outside of you. But solitude is like turning away from the window and facing a mirror. And in that mirror, you see the one person you have spent your entire life avoiding. This is why so many people fear being alone. It is not the silence they dread, it is the reflection. Because the mirror does not lie, it does not flatter, it does not perform. It shows you exactly who you are when the audience has left the room. And for many, that reflection is a stranger. This is the mirror phase of psychological maturity. It is the moment when you stop decorating the window and start cleaning the glass of the mirror. Most people spend decades polishing how they appear to others while the mirror gathers dust. Solitude is the gymnasium of the soul. It is where you confront not the person you pretend to be, but the person you actually are. It is where you sit with your contradictions, your unhealed wounds, your unfulfilled longings, and instead of running, you stay. You stay and you listen. And in that listening, something begins to strengthen. Not your reputation, not your image, your identity. But the modern world has made this confrontation almost impossible. And the reason is chemical. Every time someone likes your photograph, every time a message lights up your screen, every time a room full of people laughs at your joke, a small pulse of dopamine is released in your brain. It is brief, it is warm, and it is deeply, devastatingly addictive. You have been trained at the neurological level to seek your sense of worth from external sources. You are not producing meaning, you are consuming attention. And like all consumption, the hunger returns the moment the supply disappears. This is the dopamine loop of social validation. It does not fill you, it empties you, and then convinces you to come back for more. Solitude breaks this loop, not gently, not comfortably. In the early stages of intentional isolation, the brain protests. It sends waves of restlessness, of boredom, of anxiety. It whispers that you are wasting time, that you are missing out, that somewhere, right now, life is happening without you. These are withdrawal symptoms. They are the neurological equivalent of an addict reaching for a substance that is no longer there. But if you endure, if you sit through the discomfort without reaching for your phone, without filling the silence with noise, something remarkable begins to happen. The brain recalibrates. It begins to generate its own sense of reward. Creativity appears. Insight deepens. You start to feel a satisfaction that is not borrowed from anyone else's approval. You transition from being a consumer of attention to a producer of meaning, and that transition changes everything. There is one final transformation that solitude offers, and it is perhaps the most profound. In the presence of others, your ego is perpetually on stage. It is performing. It is adjusting its posture, selecting its words, monitoring its reception. The ego is not evil. It is simply exhausting. It is the part of you that believes survival depends on being perceived favorably. And in social environments, it never rests. It cannot. There is always another impression to manage, another judgment to deflect, another mask to adjust. But in solitude, the audience disappears. The lights go down, the curtain falls, and the ego, for the first time, has nothing to do. It sits, it softens, it quiets. This is where true peace begins. Not when people stop talking to you, but when you stop talking to yourself about people. When the internal monologue of comparison, of evaluation, of social calculation finally falls silent, what remains is not emptiness. What remains is presence. Pure, undiluted awareness of being alive without needing to justify it to anyone. The Buddhists call it equanimity. The Stoics called it the inner citadel. The neuroscientists see it as a state of reduced activity in the medial prefrontal cortex, the region most associated with self-referential worry. Whatever name you give it, the experience is the same. It is the feast of presence. The table is set. The food is your own attention, your own awareness, your own unmediated experience of existence. And for the first time, it is enough. You have chosen the feast. You have sat down at the table of the self. But as the room grows quiet, an ancient fear begins to crawl up your spine. It is a fear you did not create, but one you inherited from the very first humans who walked this earth. In the next chapter, we face the fear of exile, and we learn why your DNA still believes that being alone is a death sentence, and how to rewrite that code. Close your eyes and imagine the African savanna 200,000 years ago. The sun is falling. The grass stretches in every direction, golden and infinite, and utterly indifferent to your survival. You are small. You are soft. You have no claws, no venom, no armor. Your teeth are blunt. Your speed is mediocre. Alone, you are not a predator. You are a meal. The only thing standing between you and the jaws of something faster, stronger, and hungrier than you is the circle of bodies around a fire. The tribe, the group, the others, they are not a luxury. They are your immune system. They are your weapon. They are your only reason for being alive when the sun rises again. Now imagine the worst thing that could happen to you in that world. It is not injury. It is not illness. It is the moment the group turns its back, the moment the circle closes, and you are on the outside. Exile, banishment, the severing of your only lifeline. On the savannah, this was not a social inconvenience. It was a death sentence carried out by the environment itself. No trial, no appeal, just silence, darkness, and the sound of something breathing in the tall grass. You would not last a week. This was the reality of your ancestors for hundreds of thousands of years, and the brain you carry inside your skull right now was forged in that reality. It was shaped not by classrooms or cities or the internet, but by firelight and fear and the absolute biological necessity of belonging to a group. Every neural circuit that governs your social behavior was written during an era when rejection did not mean embarrassment. It meant death. And here is the revelation that should change the way you understand yourself forever. That brain has not been updated. The hardware you are running is the same hardware that trembled at the edge of the savannah. Your prefrontal cortex may understand that it is the 21st century, but your amygdala has no idea. The amygdala is a small, almond-shaped structure buried deep in the temporal lobe of your brain. It is the sentinel, the alarm, the ancient guard dog that scans your environment for threats and decides, in fractions of a second, whether you are safe or whether you need to fight, flee, or freeze. It does not reason. It does not negotiate. It does not understand context. It only understands patterns. And the pattern it learned across millennia of evolution is devastatingly simple. Separation from the group equals mortal danger. Activate the emergency protocol. This is what happens inside your body when you feel excluded. It does not matter if the exclusion is a cancelled invitation, an unanswered message, or a room full of people who seem to know each other while you stand at the edge. The amygdala does not evaluate the severity. It fires. Cortisol floods your bloodstream. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your thoughts narrow. Your stomach tightens. You are not experiencing sadness. You are experiencing a threat response. Your body is preparing you for the predator it believes is coming because the tribe has moved and you have been left behind. This is amygdala activation in its purest form, and it is happening to billions of people every single day, not because they are in danger, but because their biology cannot tell the difference between a lion in the grass and a notification that never arrived. Scientists have a name for this. They call it evolutionary mismatch. It is the condition in which a brain designed for one environment is forced to operate in a radically different one. Your threat detection system was calibrated for a world of physical predators, scarce resources, and small, tight-knit groups of 40 to 60 individuals. It now operates in a world of 8 billion strangers, infinite digital connections, and social environments so vast and abstract that your nervous system cannot possibly process them. The mismatch is catastrophic. Your amygdala treats every social slight as an exile event, every unread message as evidence of abandonment, every evening spent alone as a signal that the tribe has left you to die. And the evidence for this is not theoretical. It has been measured. In a now famous series of experiments, researchers created a simple digital game called Cyberball. Participants were told they would be playing a virtual ball-tossing game with 2 other players. In reality, the other players were controlled by a computer. At a certain point, the program was designed to stop passing the ball to the participant. The participant was simply ignored, excluded, left out of a meaningless game with people who did not exist. The results were staggering. Brain scans revealed that the same regions activated during physical pain lit up during this trivial digital rejection. The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the anterior insula, the architecture of suffering. Participants reported feeling hurt, anxious, and devalued, even after being told the game was fake, even after being told the other players were not real. It did not matter. The biology does not care about context. It does not care about logic. It only knows one thing. The tribe stopped including you. And to your brain, that is an emergency. Now consider what this means for your everyday life. Consider the price you are paying for carrying this ancient alarm system into a modern world. Every time you agree with an opinion you secretly despise just to maintain social harmony, you are paying a tax. Every time you laugh at a joke that is not funny because the group is laughing, you are paying a tax. Every time you stay in a friendship that drains you or a relationship that diminishes you because the alternative is being alone, you are paying a tax. And the currency of that tax is not money. It is your authenticity, your identity, your soul. This is the conformity tax, and you have been paying it since childhood. The amygdala whispers that agreement is safety, that blending in is survival, that the cost of standing out is exile, and exile is death. So you comply. You shrink. You edit your thoughts before they reach your mouth. You scan the room before you speak, not to find truth, but to find consensus. And piece by piece, compromise by compromise, you trade who you are for the right to remain inside a circle that may not even want the real you, only the performance. The philosopher Kierkegaard wrote that the most common form of despair is not being who you are. He understood, long before neuroscience confirmed it, that the deepest suffering is not exclusion from others. It is exclusion from yourself. And the conformity tax guarantees this suffering, because every act of self-betrayal performed in the name of belonging pushes you further from the only person whose approval actually matters, you. So how do you rewrite this code? How do you override software that has been running for 50,000 generations? You begin by understanding that the code cannot be deleted. You will never remove the amygdala's sensitivity to social exclusion. It is hardwired. It is structural. It is part of what makes you human. But you can build new circuits around it. You can train your prefrontal cortex, the rational, executive part of your brain, to recognize the alarm for what it is, not a fact, not a prophecy, a fossil, an echo from an era that no longer exists. The process is called deliberate exposure, and it is the psychological equivalent of teaching your nervous system a new language. You begin with small, voluntary acts of solitude, not isolation born from rejection, chosen solitude. You eat a meal alone in a public place. You walk without headphones. You spend an evening without reaching for a screen. And in each of these moments, when the amygdala fires its ancient warning, you do not obey. You observe. You notice the panic. You feel the cortisol. And you let it pass without acting on it. Each time you do this, you are sending a new signal to your nervous system. You are safe. You are alone, and nothing is coming to kill you. Over time, this practice builds what can only be called biological sovereignty. It is the state in which your sense of safety is no longer outsourced to the behavior of others. You stop needing the room to validate you. You stop needing the message to arrive. You stop scanning for the approval that your ancestors needed to survive, but that you no longer require to live. You become, in the language of evolution, a new kind of organism, not a herd animal desperately clinging to the group, but a sovereign creature, capable of walking alone without the ancient panic convincing you that the darkness is full of teeth. Intellectual independence is the modern equivalent of being a solo predator. It is the ability to hold an unpopular thought without trembling, to sit in an empty room without reaching for distraction, to disagree with the crowd and feel your heart rate remain steady. It is not arrogance. It is not coldness. It is the quiet, earned confidence of a nervous system that has been retrained to understand a simple truth. In the world you actually live in, your survival does not depend on external approval. It depends on internal strength. The alarm is ringing. Your DNA is screaming for the crowd. But what if you could cut the wires? What if you could build a brain that does not need a single notification to feel alive? In the next chapter, we meet the self-sustaining brain and discover the secret of generating your own dopamine without ever needing another human being to witness it. Watch someone waiting for a text message. Watch their eyes. Watch how they glance at the screen. Look away, then glance again. Watch the micro-tension in their jaw, the slight holding of breath, the way their entire neurochemical state hangs suspended on whether or not a small rectangle of glass will illuminate with the words of another person. This is not communication. This is dependency. This is a human being whose internal sense of worth has been completely outsourced to the behavior of someone else. And this is not an exception. This is the norm. This is almost everyone you know. This might be you. The modern human is a dopamine beggar, not by choice, but by conditioning. From the moment you were old enough to perform, you were taught that your value is determined by the response of others. You smiled, and your parents clapped, and your brain recorded the lesson. Approval equals reward. You told a joke in school, and the laughter of other children sent a warm pulse of dopamine through your nucleus accumbens, and another lesson was recorded. Audience equals pleasure. You posted a photograph, and the numbers climbed, and each notification was a tiny intravenous drip of validation, feeding directly into your reward circuitry. And now, decades later, you are so thoroughly trained that you cannot sit in a room alone for 10 minutes without reaching for the device that connects you to the crowd. Because without the crowd, the supply is cut off. And without the supply, you feel something that your conscious mind calls boredom, but your nervous system experiences as withdrawal. This is neurochemical withdrawal in its most socially acceptable form. The dopamine system does not care whether its trigger is cocaine or a compliment. The architecture is identical. A cue predicts a reward. The reward arrives. Dopamine spikes. The spike fades. The brain demands another cue. When the source of dopamine is external, when it depends on the actions of other people, you have built your entire emotional economy on a resource you do not control. You are not the producer of your own well-being. You are the consumer, and like all consumers, you are at the mercy of supply chains that can collapse without warning. A friend goes silent, a partner withdraws, the numbers stop climbing, and suddenly, the architecture of your happiness is revealed for what it always was. A house built on someone else's land. But there is another system. It has always been there, wired into the same brain, waiting for the conditions that allow it to function. Neuroscience calls it the intrinsic reward system. It is the dopamine that arrives not from approval, but from engagement. Not from being witnessed, but from being absorbed. When you lose yourself in a book so completely that you forget you have a body, that is intrinsic reward. When you solve a problem and feel a quiet click of satisfaction that has nothing to do with anyone watching, that is intrinsic reward. When you create something, anything, a sentence, a sketch, a melody, and the act of creation itself fills you with a warmth that requires no audience, you have tapped into a fuel source that cannot be taken from you, because it is generated from within. The psychology of intrinsic motivation identifies 3 essential nutrients: autonomy, the feeling that you are the author of your own actions; competence, the feeling that you are growing, learning, mastering, and relatedness, the feeling of connection, but not necessarily to other people. You can feel related to your work, to your purpose, to the process itself. When these 3 nutrients are present, dopamine flows not as a desperate spike followed by a crash, but as a steady, sustainable current. This is not the dopamine of craving. This is the dopamine of becoming, and it only requires one condition to flourish: the absence of performance. This is where solitude becomes not just a preference, but a neurological advantage. Consider what your prefrontal cortex is doing during a social interaction. It is monitoring facial expressions. It is calculating the appropriateness of your words. It is modeling the other person's mental state, predicting their reactions, adjusting your tone, managing your image. This is called social cognition, and it is extraordinarily expensive in terms of neural resources. Your prefrontal cortex, the most advanced piece of biological engineering in the known universe, is spending the majority of its power on impression management. It is a supercomputer running a public relations campaign. In solitude, this burden is lifted. The prefrontal cortex is released from the endless labor of managing how you appear to others, and it redirects its resources towards something far more valuable: self-referential processing. This is the brain thinking about itself, examining its own beliefs, questioning its own assumptions, planning not for social survival, but for genuine growth. In this state, you are not reacting to the world. You are organizing it. You are building internal models of meaning, purpose, and direction that belong entirely to you. You are, in the most literal neurological sense, becoming the chief executive of your own mind. The social board of directors has left the room, and for the first time, the decisions are yours. This liberation creates the conditions for a state that psychologists consider the peak of human experience: flow, that complete immersion in an activity where time dissolves and self-consciousness vanishes, and you operate at the absolute edge of your ability. Research has consistently demonstrated that the deepest flow states occur in solitude, and the reason is architectural. Flow requires the temporary quieting of a specific brain region, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is heavily involved in self-monitoring and social evaluation. When you are being observed, or when you believe you might be observed, this region stays active. It keeps asking the question that murders creativity: how do I look? But when the audience is gone, when there is truly no one to perform for, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex stands down. The inner critic goes silent, and you drop into a state of pure, frictionless engagement with the task before you. You are no longer performing, you are being. And in that being, you access capacities that the performing mind can never reach. But there is a subtler transformation occurring beneath the surface of these flow states, one that changes not just what you do, but how you feel at rest. It involves a shift between two fundamentally different neurochemical regimes. The first is dominated by dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical of pursuit, of wanting, of reaching. It whispers that satisfaction is always one more notification away, one more achievement away, one more validation away. It is the engine of ambition, but also of perpetual dissatisfaction, because dopamine does not reward having, it rewards seeking. And a brain dominated by dopamine is a brain that can never rest. The second regime is dominated by serotonin. Serotonin is the chemical of sufficiency, of contentment, of the quiet recognition that what you have right now, in this moment, is enough. It does not drive you toward the next reward. It settles you into the present one. And here is what the research reveals. Chronic social comparison, the endless measuring of yourself against others that social environments demand, suppresses serotonin activity. It locks the brain into a dopamine-seeking frenzy, always chasing, always comparing, never arriving. But solitude, practiced with intention, practiced not as escape, but as cultivation, gradually shifts the balance. The frantic wanting begins to quiet, the desperate seeking begins to slow, and in its place, a warmth spreads through your neurochemistry that does not depend on anything external. It is the warmth of a system that has finally stopped searching for what it already has. This is the serotonin of solitude. It is not euphoria. It is not excitement. It is something rarer and more durable than either. It is the felt sense of being sufficient, of sitting in a room with no one watching and requiring nothing more than the fact of your own existence to feel at peace. Most people have never experienced this because most people have never given their brain the conditions required to produce it. They have been too busy feeding the dopamine loop, too busy answering the next notification, too busy chasing the next hit of external validation to discover that their own neurochemistry was always capable of generating something far more nourishing. You are building something inside yourself that did not exist before. A self-sustaining circuit, a closed loop of meaning and reward that does not require anyone else to complete it. You are learning that your brain is not merely a receiver of light from the outside world. It is a generator. It produces its own luminance when given the silence, the space, and the sovereignty to do so. You are no longer a puppet whose strings are held by the crowd. You are no longer a beggar waiting at the gates of someone else's attention. You are becoming the source. You are no longer a beggar. You are a producer. Your brain is generating its own light. But as you stand in this internal glow, you realize you are wearing something heavy, a costume, a mask you forgot you put on. Why do you feel different when you are alone than when you are with others? Why does the silence reveal a stranger? Because the social persona is dying. In the next chapter, we witness the death of the persona and discover who you really are when there is no one left to impress. You woke up this morning, and before your feet touched the floor, you were already performing. You reached for your phone, and in the pale glow of the screen, the show began. You scanned the messages. You calculated your replies, not based on what you felt, but based on what would land correctly, what would seem warm enough, but not desperate, casual enough, but not cold. You selected your tone the way an actor selects a costume, and you hadn't even brushed your teeth. Then you dressed, and the costume became literal. You chose clothes, not for comfort, but for perception. You rehearsed your face in the mirror, not to see yourself, but to preview what others would see. And by the time you stepped outside, the performance was fully underway. Your posture adjusted to the environment. Your vocabulary shifted to match your audience. Your opinions bent toward consensus. Your laughter calibrated itself to the room. You are not living your life. You are staging it. And you are exhausted, not because the world demands too much of you, but because the character you are playing demands everything. Carl Jung gave this character a name. He called it the persona. The word comes from the Latin for mask, specifically the kind of mask worn by actors in ancient theatre. Jung understood that every human being constructs a social face, a carefully edited version of themselves designed to be acceptable, digestible, and safe. The persona is not evil. It is a survival mechanism. It is the part of you that knows how to navigate a room, how to say the right thing at a funeral, how to laugh at your employer's joke even when it is not funny. But Jung also understood something darker. He understood that for most people, the mask eventually fuses to the skin. You wear it for so long that you forget it is there. You begin to believe that the performance is the person, and the real self, the one beneath the mask, the one that existed before you learned to perform, slowly suffocates under the weight of a role it never auditioned for. You are tired, not because you work too hard, not because you sleep too little. You are tired because you have been acting in a play you did not write, for an audience that will never know the difference. Now, imagine something terrifying. Imagine the audience leaving. Imagine the room going dark. Imagine a long evening with absolutely no one to perform for, no messages to calibrate, no faces to read, no social equations to solve. Just you, sitting with yourself in silence. For many people, this is not peace, it is horror. Because when the mask falls, when the audience disappears, they reach for their own face and find something they do not recognize. They have been the friend for so long that without the friend group, they do not know who they are. They have been the reliable worker for so many years that without the office, the title, the role, they feel like a blank page. They have been the attentive partner, the dutiful child, the entertaining host, and now, in the silence, all of those roles have been stripped away simultaneously, and what remains is a void, not a comfortable void, not a peaceful emptiness, a screaming, disorienting blankness that whispers the most terrifying question a human being can face. If I am none of these roles, then who am I? This is the persona void, and it is the reason most people will do absolutely anything to avoid being alone. They will fill the silence with noise. They will scroll for hours through the lives of strangers. They will make plans they do not want, attend gatherings they do not enjoy, maintain relationships that corrode them from the inside, all to avoid this single, shattering moment of confrontation with the unknown thing behind the mask. But here is what Jung understood, and what I need you to hear. The void is not emptiness. It is a clearing. It is the space that opens up when the false has been removed and the real has not yet arrived. It is terrifying because it is unfamiliar, but it is not dangerous. It is the beginning of the most important thing that will ever happen to you. It is the beginning of authenticity. But before we can embrace what lies on the other side of the void, you need to understand exactly how much the mask has been costing you. Cognitive neuroscience has revealed that maintaining a social persona is one of the most metabolically expensive activities the human brain can perform. Every moment you spend in a social environment, your prefrontal cortex is running a staggering number of parallel computations. It is modeling the mental states of the people around you. It is predicting their reactions. It is monitoring your own facial expressions for consistency. It is suppressing impulses that do not match the role you are playing. It is editing your language in real time, removing the words that are too honest, inserting the words that are too safe. This is not relaxation. This is not connection. This is labor. It is cognitive load at its most relentless. Studies measuring glucose metabolism in the brain have shown that social interaction, particularly interaction where impression management is high, consumes resources at a rate comparable to complex problem solving. You are burning fuel not to create, not to learn, not to grow, but to maintain an illusion. And the cost is not merely mental. Chronic persona maintenance elevates cortisol. It fragments attention. It erodes the deep, reflective thinking that your brain requires to consolidate memory, process emotion, and generate insight. The mask is not just heavy, it is parasitic. It feeds on the very energy that your authentic self needs to survive. This is why true rest is not simply sleeping. You can sleep for 8 hours and wake up exhausted, because even in your waking hours, you were never in a state of cognitive rest. True rest is the state in which you do not have to adjust yourself, in which no part of your brain is dedicated to monitoring how you are being perceived, in which the entire apparatus of social performance is switched off. This state has a name. It is called solitude. And for most people, it is the only environment in which their brain can actually recover from the relentless metabolic cost of being someone they are not. But recovery is only the first gift of the void. The second is far more profound. When the persona falls away, when the noise of social performance finally goes silent, something begins to rise from the depths. Jung called it the shadow. It is the collection of every thought, desire, fear, and impulse that the persona has been suppressing. It is the anger you were told was inappropriate, the ambition you were told was selfish, the sadness you were told was weakness, the creativity you abandoned because it did not fit the role. In social life, the shadow is kept underground because it threatens the mask. The persona cannot afford for you to be angry when the script says you should be agreeable. It cannot afford for you to be ambitious when the group demands you be modest. So the shadow is exiled, pushed into the unconscious, denied and disowned. In solitude, the exile ends. Without the social pressure to maintain the mask, the repressed contents of your psyche begin to surface. This is why the first days and weeks of intentional solitude can feel so uncomfortable. It is not the absence of people that disturbs you. It is the presence of yourself. The parts of yourself you have been running from. They come up in waves, memories you buried, desires you suppressed, truths you did not want to face. And the temptation is to flee, to reach for the phone, to fill the room with voices, to rebuild the mask as quickly as possible. But if you stay, if you sit with the shadow instead of running from it, something begins to happen that Jung considered the single most important process in human psychological development: integration. The separated parts of you begin to reunite. The anger is not destroyed. It is understood. The ambition is not shamed. It is directed. The sadness is not silenced. It is honored. You are no longer a fragment of a social group, performing one narrow role. You are becoming a whole individual, a person who contains multitudes and is no longer afraid of any of them. And here is the proof that this process is real. Pay attention to how you move when no one is watching. Not your social posture, not your public walk. The way you move when you are truly, completely alone. Your shoulders drop, your jaw unclenches, your breathing deepens and slows. You reach for things differently. You sit differently. You might dance in your kitchen. You might speak aloud to yourself in a voice you never use in public. This is your biological truth. This is the animal beneath the actor. This is the body that existed before the world told it how to behave. And it moves with a freedom that the persona can never permit. The ultimate goal of solitude is not to retreat from the world forever. It is to become so familiar with this unobserved truth, so rooted in the body and the self that exists when no one is watching, that you can carry it back into the social world without losing it. Radical authenticity is not the absence of a persona. It is the choice to make the persona transparent, to let people see through the mask to the face beneath, to move through the world the way you move through your kitchen when the doors are closed and the music is playing and no one on earth is evaluating you. This is freedom. Not freedom from others, but freedom from the exhausting pretense that you must be anything other than what you are. The mask has crumbled. The actor has left the stage. For the first time, you are looking at your own reflection without filters. And in this nakedness of the soul, something incredible happens. Without the noise of others, your mind begins to build things you never thought possible. In the next chapter, we enter the incubation room and discover why your greatest ideas are born only when you are completely alone. Every corporation on earth has a room with a whiteboard and a word written on the wall in cheerful letters. Brainstorm. They fill the room with people. They hand out markers. They say the magic words. No bad ideas. And then they wait for genius to arrive. It never does. What arrives instead is something far more predictable. The loudest voice dominates. The most socially confident person sets the direction. The quietest thinkers, the ones whose minds work in spirals rather than straight lines, retreat into silence. Not because they have nothing to say, but because the room has made it dangerous to say it. This is evaluation, apprehension. The well-documented psychological phenomenon in which the presence of others causes the brain to filter its output through a lens of social acceptability before it ever reaches the mouth. The idea that might be brilliant but sounds strange is swallowed. The connection that might be revolutionary but seems illogical is buried. The room designed to generate creativity becomes the room that murders it. And there is a second force at work, quieter but equally destructive. Social loafing, the unconscious tendency to reduce individual effort when working in a group. The brain calculates, without your awareness, that responsibility is distributed, that someone else will carry the creative weight. And so it relaxes, it coasts, it produces competent, average, socially safe ideas instead of the dangerous, world-altering ones it is capable of when it operates alone. Decades of research in organizational psychology have confirmed what artists and scientists have always known intuitively. The best ideas do not come from groups. They come from individuals who then bring their ideas to groups. The flash of insight, the unexpected connection, the thought that changes everything. These are born in silence. They are born in solitude. They are born in the room where no one is watching and no one is judging, and the mind is free to go where the crowd would never permit. To understand why, you need to understand how creativity actually works inside the brain. It is not a single event. It is a process with distinct phases, and the most important phase is the one you have been systematically preventing. The first phase is preparation. This is the gathering of raw material, reading, studying, observing, absorbing information from the world. Most people are stuck in this phase permanently. They consume endlessly. Articles, videos, podcasts, conversations, feeds. The input never stops. They believe that more information will produce better ideas. It will not. because information without processing is just noise. The second phase is incubation, and this is where everything changes. Incubation is what happens when you stop consuming and start allowing. You step away from the problem. You stop forcing connections. You let the conscious mind rest. And beneath the surface, in the vast unconscious networks of your brain, something extraordinary begins. Neurons that have never communicated before start forming tentative connections. Memories from different decades of your life begin to brush against each other. Patterns that were invisible under the glare of focused attention become visible in the soft light of mental rest. This is associative synthesis, the brain's ability to combine unrelated concepts into something entirely new, and it requires one non-negotiable condition: the absence of external input. Every time you pick up your phone during a moment of rest, you are aborting an incubation cycle. Every time you fill a silence with a podcast, you are interrupting a connection that was forming in the dark. Every time you open a social feed during a quiet moment, you are flooding the laboratory with noise at the precise instant the experiment was about to succeed. You are not bored in those moments. You are gestating, and you keep killing the embryo because you have been trained to interpret its stillness as emptiness. The third phase is illumination. The moment the connection completes, the moment the idea arrives fully formed, seemingly from nowhere. You have experienced this. In the shower, on a walk, in the middle of the night when your mind was drifting. These are not accidents. These are the successful completions of incubation cycles that were allowed to run without interruption. The shower is not magical. The walk is not special. What is special is that during these moments, for once, you were not consuming, you were not performing, you were alone with the contents of your own mind. And your brain, finally given the silence it needed, delivered what it had been building in secret. But incubation produces more than just solutions to existing problems. In solitude, the brain enters a mode of cognition that psychologists call divergent thinking. It is the opposite of the linear, logical, convergent thinking that social and professional environments demand. Convergent thinking asks, what is the correct answer? Divergent thinking asks, what are all the possible answers, including the ones that seem absurd? In a social setting, divergent thinking is suppressed. The group enforces norms. The room has invisible guardrails that keep thought within acceptable boundaries. You self-edit before you speak. You test ideas against the anticipated reaction of others before you even fully form them. The result is thought that is safe, predictable, and thoroughly mediocre. In solitude, the guardrails vanish. There is no audience to disapprove, no norm to violate, no social cost for thinking the unthinkable. The brain is free to make what I call illegal connections, links between concepts that logic would never sanction, but that creativity demands. The connection between falling apples and orbiting planets. The connection between dream imagery and unconscious desire. The connection between bacterial contamination and medical revolution. These are not logical progressions. They are leaps, and leaps require the absence of the crowd, because the crowd is always shouting, "Stay on the path." This is why the most transformative minds in human history share a common and conspicuous trait. They were solitaries. Not all of them, not exclusively, but at the critical moments of their greatest work, they were alone. Newton did not discover calculus in a committee meeting. He developed it during 2 years of self-imposed isolation at his family estate during the plague, a period he later called the most intellectually productive of his life. Emily Dickinson did not compose nearly 1,800 poems at literary salons. She wrote them in a small bedroom in Amherst, communicating with the outside world primarily through letters slid under her door. Einstein did not arrive at special relativity through collaboration. He arrived at it during long, solitary hours at the patent office, conducting thought experiments that no group would have sanctioned because they violated every established assumption of physics. These individuals were not antisocial. They were not broken. They were not incapable of connection. They were protecting something. They understood, perhaps instinctively, that ideas in their early stages are extraordinarily fragile. A new idea is not a fortress. It is a seedling. And seedlings do not survive in public squares where every passerby can step on them. They survive in greenhouses, controlled environments where the conditions are optimized for growth. Solitude is the mental greenhouse. It is the space where ideas too fragile for the harsh light of social evaluation can take root, strengthen, and eventually grow into something strong enough to share with the world. Think of your brain as a factory. Every day, deliveries arrive at the loading dock. Conversations, emails, articles, images, opinions, notifications, arguments, news. The deliveries never stop. They pile up on the factory floor in towering, chaotic stacks. But the workers inside the factory, the cognitive processes responsible for sorting, connecting, integrating, and making sense of all this material, they cannot do their work while the deliveries keep coming. They need the doors to close. They need the conveyor belt to stop. They need a period of zero input so they can finally walk through the stacks and discover what is actually there. You do not have an information deficit. You have a processing deficit. You are drowning not in ignorance, but in unorganized knowledge. And the only cure is the silence that allows your brain to turn raw information into structured understanding. This is why your best ideas come when you least expect them. They are not arriving from outside. They are emerging from inside, from the vast warehouse of material your brain has been trying to process for months, but could never organize because you never gave it the quiet it needed. Solitude is not passive. It is not idle. It is the most productive state your brain can enter, because it is the only state in which the full depth of your cognitive architecture is engaged, not in reacting to the world, but in reconstructing it. You are standing now in the incubation room. The door is closed, the noise has faded, and your mind, perhaps for the first time in years, is beginning to do what it was always designed to do. Connect, synthesize, create. You can feel it, the slow gathering of something powerful at the edges of your awareness. An idea, a vision, a version of yourself that thinks with a clarity you have never experienced because you were never still enough to allow it. This is the beginning of your own genius. Not genius as the world defines it, genius as the brain defines it. The full, uninterrupted expression of a mind finally free to do its deepest work. You have entered the room. You have protected your ideas. You are on the verge of something extraordinary. But there is a thief at the door, a silent, glowing thief that lives in your pocket and whispers every few minutes that the tribe needs you, that you are missing something, that the world is happening without you. In the next chapter, we face the digital noise and discover how social media is the ultimate poison for the sovereign soul. You are sitting in a room. You are alone. Your body knows this. Your skin registers no warmth from another person. Your ears detect no voice. Your peripheral vision catches no movement. Every biological sensor you possess confirms the same reality. You are by yourself, but your brain disagrees. Your brain believes you are in the middle of a crowd, because in your hand, glowing softly, is a device that is feeding it an endless stream of faces, voices, opinions, and reactions. Your ancient social circuitry, the same circuitry that evolved to process the 40 faces around a tribal fire, is now attempting to process the signals of thousands of strangers simultaneously, and it is failing. It is failing in a way that is making you sick, anxious, and more profoundly isolated than any human generation before you. This is the digital hallucination, the greatest evolutionary mismatch of the modern era. Social media does not connect you to a tribe. It simulates a tribe. And simulation to the deeper layers of your nervous system is not the same as reality. Your neocortex can be fooled. It sees the faces and registers social presence. But your body cannot be deceived so easily. Your vagus nerve, the long wandering nerve that regulates your sense of safety and social bonding, requires physical presence to activate its calming response. It needs eye contact. It needs vocal tone. It needs the subtle, unconscious synchrony of two nervous systems in the same room. A screen provides none of this. So, you exist in a state of neurological contradiction. Your higher brain believes you are connected. Your deeper brain knows you are alone. And the gap between these two signals produces a low-grade, chronic anxiety that you cannot name, but that follows you everywhere. You are hyper-connected and profoundly unseen. You are surrounded by 1,000 faces and touched by none. And the damage does not stop at the simulation of presence. There is a second mechanism at work, quieter and more corrosive, operating every time you scroll. It is called upward social comparison, and it is the silent assassin of your self-worth. In genuine solitude, you exist without a reference point. There is no one to measure yourself against. Your body is simply your body. Your life is simply your life. Your thoughts belong to you without needing to be ranked. But the moment you open a social feed, you enter an arena of comparison so vast and so distorted that no human psyche was ever designed to survive it. You are no longer comparing yourself to the 30 people in your village. You are comparing yourself to the curated, filtered, strategically edited highlight reels of billions of strangers. And your brain does not know the difference between a real life and a performed one. It sees the image and it compares. It sees the achievement and it measures. It sees the beauty and it judges. And every single comparison lands in the same place. You are not enough. This is the engine that replaces your authentic self with what can only be called the performative ego. A version of you that exists not to live, but to be seen living. It does not read a book for the pleasure of reading. It reads a book to photograph the book. It does not visit a beautiful place to experience beauty. It visits to capture proof of the visit. The performative ego is never off duty. It is always composing the next post, the next story, the next carefully casual evidence that your life is worth witnessing. And in this constant composition, the actual experience of being alive is consumed entirely by the performance of being alive. You are not living. You are directing a film about living. And the director never gets to be in the scene. But perhaps the most devastating casualty of the digital age is something so quiet, so humble, so universally dismissed that its destruction has gone almost entirely unnoticed. Boredom. You have been taught that boredom is a problem to be solved, an uncomfortable gap to be filled, a failure of stimulation. But boredom is none of these things. Boredom is a gateway. It is the psychological threshold between consumption and creation. It is the moment when the brain, having exhausted all external input, turns inward and begins to generate its own content. Every great idea you have ever had arrived on the other side of boredom. Every flash of insight, every creative impulse, every moment of genuine self-understanding emerged from a period when you were unstimulated and your brain had no choice but to entertain itself. Social media is a boredom extinction machine. It has eliminated the gap entirely. The moment the faintest whisper of boredom arises, you reach for the screen and flood your brain with novelty. A new face, a new outrage, a new piece of trivial information that feels urgent but will be forgotten in seconds. And every time you do this, you reset the clock. You abort the incubation cycle. You prevent the default mode network from activating. You silence the exact cognitive architecture that produces insight, creativity, and self-knowledge. You are not scrolling through entertainment. You are scrolling through the graveyard of your own unborn ideas. Every hour spent on a social feed is an hour in which your brain was ready to create and you chose to consume instead. Not because you are weak, but because a trillion-dollar industry has engineered the most sophisticated boredom prevention system in human history and placed it in your pocket. The engineering is precise, it is deliberate, and it operates on a principle borrowed directly from the psychology of gambling: variable ratio reinforcement. The slot machine does not pay out every time. If it did, the excitement would fade. It pays out unpredictably. Sometimes you pull the lever and nothing happens. Sometimes you pull it and the coins pour out. It is the unpredictability that makes it addictive. Your notification system operates on the identical principle. You check your phone, and sometimes nothing has happened. But sometimes there is a like, a comment, a message, a small, warm pulse of dopamine delivered on a random schedule designed to maximize compulsive checking. Each microdose of approval is tiny, almost imperceptible, but the cumulative effect is devastating. Your brain learns that the source of reward is external, unpredictable, and available at any moment. And this learning makes the silence of solitude feel not like peace, but like deprivation. You are not reaching for your phone because you need information. You are reaching for it because your dopamine system has been hijacked by a slot machine that you carry with you every waking hour of your life. And here is the deepest betrayal of all. Even when you believe you have achieved solitude, even when you have physically removed yourself from other people, even when you sit in a quiet room with a book or a sunset or a cup of coffee, you are still not alone if your first impulse is to document the moment. The photograph of the sunset is not solitude, it is surveillance. The story of the quiet morning is not peace, it is performance. The moment you frame your experience for an audience, even an imagined audience, even an audience you do not consciously acknowledge. You have invited the crowd into your sanctuary. You have opened the door of the incubation room and let the noise flood back in. This is the digital panopticon. The original panopticon was a prison designed so that inmates could be observed at all times without knowing exactly when they were being watched. The result was that they began to police their own behavior constantly, as though the eye were always upon them. Social media has achieved something the panopticon's architect could never have imagined. It has made the prisoners build the watchtower themselves. You are both the inmate and the guard. You are monitoring your own experience through the imagined gaze of an audience that may or may not be paying attention. And this self-surveillance destroys the very thing that makes solitude transformative, the absence of the observer. If you document it for others, you did not experience it for yourself. You experienced a performance of it. And the performance, no matter how beautiful the lighting, is always a lesser thing than the raw, unwitnessed moment it replaced. The path forward is not the destruction of technology. It is not a naive retreat into a world without screens. It is something far more radical and far more difficult. It is the cultivation of the ability to be in a moment without reporting it, to witness beauty without capturing it, to feel something without immediately converting it into content. It is the reclamation of the unobserved life, the life that happens when no one is watching and no one will ever know, the life that belongs entirely to you, unmediated, unfiltered, unperformed. This is the life that solitude was always trying to give you, and it is the life that the glowing rectangle in your pocket is specifically, deliberately, and systematically designed to prevent. The screen has dimmed, the noise has faded, you have put down the phone, but in the sudden silence that follows, you hear something else, a whisper, a voice that has been trying to reach you through the static for years. It is not a stranger's voice. It is not a notification. It is not an algorithm predicting what you want to hear. It is your own intuition. In the next chapter, we hear the voice of intuition and discover why the most consequential decisions ever made were made in total silence. There is a voice inside you that has been trying to speak for as long as you can remember. It does not shout. It does not repeat itself. It does not compete with the noise. It speaks once, softly, in the space between thoughts, and if you are not listening, it moves on without complaint. You have heard it before. In those rare moments when the world went quiet and something inside you said, "Go," or "Stay," or "This is wrong," or "This is exactly right," you could not explain how you knew. You could not trace the logic. You could not point to evidence. But you knew, with a certainty that bypassed every rational faculty you possess. You knew. And then the noise returned. The phone buzzed. The conversation resumed. The demands of the social world flooded back in, and the voice was drowned. Not silenced, drowned, because it never stopped speaking. You simply stopped being able to hear it. This voice has a name. It is called intuition. And despite centuries of being dismissed as mystical, irrational, or unscientific, it is none of these things. Intuition is the product of your brain's most sophisticated computational system. It is pattern recognition operating at a speed and complexity that the conscious mind cannot match. Your subconscious processes roughly 11 million pieces of sensory information per second. Your conscious mind processes approximately 40. The gap between those two numbers is where intuition lives. It is the vast, silent engine running beneath your awareness, cross-referencing every experience you have ever had, every pattern you have ever observed, every subtle correlation your conscious mind was too slow or too distracted to notice. And when this engine arrives at a conclusion, it does not deliver it as a logical argument. It delivers it as a feeling, a pull, a quiet knowing that arrives without a resume and asks to be trusted without proof. But this signal, powerful as it is, has a fatal vulnerability. It is extraordinarily quiet. It operates at a frequency so low that the slightest noise obliterates it. And the modern world is nothing but noise. Not just auditory noise, but cognitive noise. The constant hum of social obligation, the background radiation of digital input, the endless internal monologue of managing your image, calibrating your responses, monitoring how you are perceived. Every one of these processes occupies bandwidth. Every one of them generates static. And in that static, the most important advisory system your brain possesses is rendered functionally mute. You are walking through life with a supercomputer in your skull, and you cannot hear its output because you refuse to turn down the volume on everything else. This is compounded by a phenomenon that neuroscience has measured with uncomfortable precision: decision fatigue. Your prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for conscious decision-making, operates on a limited energy budget. Every choice you make, no matter how small, draws from this budget. And the social world is a relentless generator of micro-decisions. What tone should this message have? How should I phrase this disagreement? What expression should I wear when I enter this room? Should I respond now or later? Is this joke appropriate for this audience? Each calculation is tiny. Each cost is imperceptible, but they accumulate across hours and days into a profound depletion of the very cognitive resource you need to think clearly about the things that actually matter. By evening, after a full day of social navigation, your prefrontal cortex is operating at a fraction of its capacity. You feel it as a fog, an inability to decide even simple things, a tendency to default to the easiest option, the safest choice, the path of least resistance. This is not laziness. This is a depleted organ. And in this depleted state, intuition cannot reach you even if the room falls silent. The machinery required to receive the signal has been exhausted by the machinery required to perform for others. This is why your worst decisions are made when you are most socially saturated. And this is why your clearest moments of knowing arrive after periods of withdrawal, of solitude, of doing absolutely nothing. There is a neurological architecture to this clarity, and it can be measured in the electrical rhythms of your brain. When you are engaged in social interaction, when you are reacting to stimuli, when you are processing the demands of other people, your brain operates primarily in what is called high beta frequency. Fast, tight, focused waves associated with alertness, anxiety, and analytical processing. This is the frequency of performance, of vigilance, of the mind that is on duty and scanning for threats. It is useful, it is necessary, but it is also loud, and in its loudness, it drowns the frequencies below. When you enter solitude, when the external demands cease and the social machinery powers down, your brain begins a gradual descent through the frequency spectrum. High beta softens into low beta. Low beta relaxes into alpha. Alpha, the frequency range between 8 and 12 Hz, is the brain's resting awareness state. It is the frequency of calm attention, of open receptivity, of the mind that is alert but not anxious, awake but not grasping. And it is in the alpha range that something remarkable begins to happen. The barrier between conscious and subconscious processing becomes permeable. Information that was being processed beneath your awareness begins to surface. Connections that were forming in the dark begin to glow. The signal that was inaudible in the noise of beta becomes clear in the spaciousness of alpha. If the solitude deepens further, if you remain in stillness without reaching for stimulation, the brain descends into theta, 4 to 8 Hz. This is the frequency of deep meditation, of the hypnagogic state between waking and sleep, of the moments when insight arrives with the force of revelation. Theta is the bridge to the subconscious. It is where the 11 million pieces of information per second are not just processed, but synthesized into coherent understanding. Your gut feeling is not mysticism. It is your brain communicating from its deepest, most experienced layers through a frequency channel that the noise of modern life has made almost impossible to access. This is why the most consequential thinkers in modern history have treated solitude not as a retreat from work, but as the highest form of work. The practice is well documented. Certain visionary leaders have famously structured their lives around periods of deliberate isolation, entire weeks dedicated to nothing but reading, thinking, and sitting with the accumulated data of months of experience without forcing conclusions. These were not vacations. They were synthesis sessions. They understood intuitively what neuroscience now confirms, that the brain cannot perform its deepest integration while it is simultaneously performing for an audience, that the pattern recognition required to see a future others cannot see demands the silence that others are afraid to enter. That strategic direction does not emerge from more meetings, more data, more conversation. It emerges from the willingness to sit alone with everything you already know and let the subconscious organize it into clarity. You do not need more information. You need less interruption. The answers you have been searching for in conversations, in articles, in the opinions of others, are not outside you. They are buried beneath the noise you are generating. Every day, your subconscious is attempting to deliver insights that could change the trajectory of your career, your relationships, your understanding of yourself. And every day, you drown the delivery in a flood of external input. You ask others for advice that your own brain has already computed. You seek validation for decisions your intuition made hours ago. You crowdsource your direction from people who know less about your life than the 11 million bit processor sitting silently inside your own skull. But here is what you need to understand about the voice. It does not wait for you indefinitely. Intuition speaks in a narrow window. If you are not listening, it does not repeat itself with increasing volume. It withdraws. It returns the insight to the subconscious and waits for the next opening. And if that opening never comes, if the noise never subsides, the insight is never delivered, you make the inferior decision. You take the less aligned path. You live a life that is slightly, perpetually off course, and you cannot explain why, because the correction was offered and you were not present to receive it. The practice of hearing the voice is not complex, but it is demanding. It requires you to sit in silence for longer than is comfortable. The first 5 minutes will feel restless. The static of the day is still clearing. Your mind will reach for tasks, for worries, for the phantom buzz of a phone that is not ringing. The next 10 minutes will feel empty. The conscious mind, accustomed to constant stimulation, will protest that nothing is happening, that this is a waste of time, that you should be doing something productive. This protest is the last wall, the final layer of noise before the signal breaks through. If you endure it, if you sit with the emptiness without filling it, somewhere around the 20th minute, something shifts. The mental fog begins to thin, the chatter subsides, and in the clearing that opens, you hear it. Not as a thought, exactly, not as a word, more like a direction, a pull, a knowing that settles into your body with a weight that logic alone can never provide. This is the voice. This is your intuition. This is the accumulated wisdom of every experience you have ever lived, distilled into a single, quiet signal that was always there, always broadcasting, always waiting for you to stop talking long enough to listen. You have heard the whisper. You have found your compass. You no longer fear the silence. You crave it. But being happy alone is not about hiding from the world. It is not about building walls or closing doors permanently. It is about returning to the world as a different creature, one whose peace is not borrowed, one whose direction is not crowdsourced, one whose foundation cannot be shaken by the opinions of strangers. In our final chapter, we reach the sovereign soul and discover how to build an internal empire that no one can conquer and no one can take away. There is a kind of person the world cannot break, not because they are stronger than others, not because they feel less, not because they have been spared suffering or gifted with some rare immunity to pain. They can be broken because they are human, and all humans are fragile, but they cannot be conquered, because somewhere inside them, in a place that no insult can reach, no rejection can shake, no abandonment can empty, there is a territory that belongs entirely to them. It was not given by anyone. It cannot be taken by anyone. It was built, stone by stone, in the silence of their own company. This territory is the internal empire, and the person who has built it is what the ancient philosophers called sovereign, not a ruler of others, a ruler of the self. And that, in every age and in every civilization, has always been the rarest and most dangerous form of power. Dangerous because it cannot be controlled. Consider how the world manages you. It manages you through your need for approval, your need for belonging, your need to be told that you are good enough, smart enough, successful enough. Every system of influence, from advertising to politics to the unspoken dynamics of your own social circle, operates by identifying what you lack and offering to fill it at a price. The price is always the same: your compliance, your conformity, your willingness to shape yourself according to someone else's blueprint. But what happens when a person no longer lacks? What happens when the approval of the crowd is pleasant but unnecessary? What happens when belonging is a choice rather than a craving? The entire machinery of manipulation loses its grip. You cannot threaten someone with exile who has already made peace with the wilderness. You cannot bribe someone with validation who generates it internally. You cannot control someone whose sense of worth is manufactured in a factory that you do not own and cannot access. The sovereign individual is not defiant. They are simply free. And freedom, true psychological freedom, terrifies every system. that depends on your dependency. But let me be precise about what sovereignty is not, because this distinction is essential, and the world will try to confuse you about it at every opportunity. Sovereignty is not isolation. It is not coldness. It is not the hollow performance of indifference by someone who secretly aches for connection. There is a vast and critical difference between the person who avoids people because they fear rejection and the person who chooses people because they enjoy them. The first is a prisoner disguised as a monk. The second is genuinely free. Psychological sovereignty does not mean you do not need people. It means you do not need any specific person's approval to feel complete. It means that when you walk into a room, you are not scanning for someone to fill a void. You are arriving with a surplus. This is the shift from scarcity to abundance. The socially dependent person approaches every interaction as a transaction. What can I extract from this? Will this person make me feel valued? Will this group confirm that I belong? They are social beggars, moving through the world with an outstretched hand, hoping that the next conversation, the next relationship, the next notification will deposit something into the empty account of their self-worth. The sovereign person approaches the same interactions with a fundamentally different posture. They are social investors. They enter relationships not because they need to take, but because they have something to give. Their attention is a gift, not a trade. Their presence is an offering, not a request. And because they are not operating from desperation, they can afford to be selective. They can afford to be honest. They can afford to walk away from connections that diminish them without feeling that their world is collapsing. This is not arrogance. This is the natural posture of a person whose inner life is rich enough to sustain them without external subsidy. And something extraordinary happens to the world when you stop needing it. It stops being threatening. This is not a metaphor. It is a perceptual shift with measurable neurological correlates. When your sense of safety is dependent on the behavior of others, your brain processes every social environment as a potential threat landscape. The amygdala remains vigilant. Cortisol levels stay elevated. Your attention narrows to the detection of rejection signals. The world appears hostile because your nervous system is interpreting it through the lens of dependency. But when your internal state is stable, when your worth is self-generated and your peace is self-maintained, the threat detection system recalibrates. The amygdala quiets. The prefrontal cortex reasserts its governance. And the same world that once felt like an arena of judgment begins to feel like a landscape of possibility. Your internal order creates external order. Not because the world has changed, but because the instrument through which you perceive it has been fundamentally repaired. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. They called it the inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the most powerful empire on earth, wrote that a man can retreat into no quieter or more untroubled place than his own soul. He did not mean escape, he meant perspective. He described what scholars now call the reserve clause, the ability to engage fully with the chaos of the world while maintaining at the center of your being an inviolable stillness. The city burns and you act. The crowd screams and you respond. But inside, beneath the action and the noise, there is a forest, and in that forest, nothing moves except the wind. This is not detachment. This is the deepest form of engagement, because it is engagement that is not contaminated by panic, by neediness, by the desperate attempt to control what cannot be controlled. You move through the world with the calm of someone who knows that the world can take many things from you, but it cannot take the one thing that matters, the empire within. And it is from this empire that the search for meaning finally ends. You have been searching for meaning your entire life, in careers, in relationships, in philosophies and religions and causes. You have consumed books and attended lectures and traveled to distant places, always looking, always hunting for the thing that would make your existence feel justified, and you never found it. Not because it does not exist, but because you were looking in the wrong direction. Meaning is not something you find in the world. It is something you radiate into the world from a source inside yourself. It is not a treasure buried in some external landscape. It is a light generated by a mind that has achieved coherence. When your inner life is fragmented, when your sense of self is scattered across the opinions of others, meaning feels elusive because you are too dispersed to produce it. But when you gather yourself, when you collect the scattered pieces of your identity and integrate them in the silence of solitude, when the persona falls away and the shadow is embraced and the noise is silenced and the sovereign self finally stands whole and undivided, meaning does not arrive from outside. It emanates from within. You do not find your purpose. You become it. And everything you touch is colored by it. Every conversation, every project, every relationship, every ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The world does not give you meaning. You give meaning to the world. Consider where you began. You began in the ache, the heavy, exhausting ache of loneliness, disguised as social life. You were surrounded by people and starving. You were performing every waking moment and did not know it. You confused the famine of loneliness with the feast of solitude, and so you kept feeding on the very thing that was making you hungry. Then you learned the biology. You discovered that your brain processes exclusion as physical pain because your ancestors died without the tribe. You understood that you were running ancient software in a modern world, obeying alarms that no longer corresponded to actual threats. You learned to override the panic. You learned that your brain could generate its own reward, its own dopamine, its own serotonin, without permission from anyone. You watched the persona fall away, and you survived the void behind it. You met your shadow and did not run. You entered the incubation room and discovered that your greatest ideas were waiting in the silence you had been afraid to enter. You put down the phone and heard, perhaps for the first time since childhood, the quiet signal of your own intuition. And now you stand here, not at the end of a journey, but at the beginning of a life that no longer requires the crowd to validate its existence. You are sovereign, not because you have rejected the world, but because you have built something inside yourself that the world cannot give and therefore cannot take. An empire of clarity, of self-generated peace, of meaning that does not depend on applause. You are not alone. You were never alone. You were always all one, entirely whole, complete in yourself. The word was trying to tell you this from the very beginning. You simply could not hear it over the noise. The door to the world is open. Walk through it. Speak. Connect. Love. Build. Give everything you have to the people and the causes that earn your devotion. But remember this: No matter where you go, no matter how loud the city, no matter how crowded the room, you are never going back alone. You are taking your empire with you.